Hi, sorry about that last video. It kind of cut off on me, so I'm going to pick up where I left off. Um, Wanted to talk just a little bit about the kind of theories that social workers rely on when they are trying to treat people and figure out what is going on with people in terms of both mental health and mental illness. The first is obviously psychological theories. Freud is probably the first one that we turn to, and he has what we consider to be psychoanalytical theories. He believes that, and I am psychoanalytically trained, but in that theory, we believe that most of the things that happen to us throughout our life are the result of and impacted by what happened in our childhood and youth. From the very first day of birth, things happen that impact our personalities, who we are, into adulthood. Certainly, there are biological pieces too, but those psychological pieces that form in our relationships with our caretakers when we are young with our first peers impact us forever. There are also psychological theories that are considered behavioral. So you guys may have heard of Pavlov's dogs. That's where, and I used to show that video, where you could see that the bell rings and Pavlov's dogs start to salivate. Then the bell ring, because he would first give them food with a bell. Then he would give them food and a bell. And then just a bell. And that would make them salivate because they would know that food was supposed to come. So those behavioral things helped us to understand that we can change people's behavior by certain activities. We can get them to change what they were doing, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And cognitive theories are that we need to change the way we think. It's not our behavior, it's the way we think. We need to make ourselves think the opposite of what we're doing for better mental health. So let's say you were taking somebody who had a habit of washing their hands, couldn't stop washing their hands, had to wash their hands hundreds of times a day. Freud might say that the reason they're washing their hands is because in their family of origin they had a lot of secrets. And everything being kept inside, kept a secret, they keep washing their hands to get rid of things, to get rid of secrets, try to wash everything away. And that might be where he would talk to somebody about. If it was behavior, we would try rewarding the person. So every time they wanted to wash their hands and they didn't do it, maybe they'd get an M&M or a dollar or something like that. We would reward that behavior for them. And then cognitively would be when we would try to have them think differently so that when that thought came to them, I need to wash my hands, I'm dirty, we would be helping them to change that thought to, I just washed my hands 5 minutes ago. I don't need to wash them yet. I can wait 5 minutes. So we're changing the thought process. That those are one sets of theories, and that you could go to college for 10 years and still be dealing with all those theories. There are also organic theories that we deal with, and this has to do with recognizing that people's have genetics, their hormones, how their brain functions. Some people have biochemical differences, brain development differences. Geez, people have seasonal affective disorder differences. So often these organic things that have to do with the human body, and we discover more all the time, are something else we have to deal with. And you can have a combination, right? You could have depression that is partially caused because of the seasons, but also because of something that happened in your childhood, that in the winter your family, I don't know, you were isolated more or something. So the two combinations together can lead to something. And the final theory that we go with are sociocultural theories. And this is the idea that mental health can have to do with the culture that we come in, the society that we're living in. It can come from labeling. And that's the whole idea that, like, if a child is in school and a teacher starts to label that child as a bad child, and then the next teacher hears that and labels that child the same way, as they go down the years, they start to think of themselves as bad. So that's it. That's what I want to say about that. We could talk about that for quite a long time. Social workers that are working in mental health tend to be part of what is called a multidisciplinary team. And when I say multidisciplinary, that means there's a whole team that might be working with a patient, psychiatrist, psychologist, an administrator. There might be somebody doing wraparound services with the family. Then there's the social worker, and all of these people are bringing their own skill to the table. The social worker will be bringing empathy, perspective taking, and knowledge of psychological processes to interact with the client and possibly the client's family. But they are also the ones who bring specific things to that multidisciplinary team. They are the ones who know the resources in the community. That's what social workers do. They connect people. So they would be doing outpatient planning, continuum of care planning, making sure that there are services for that person. They are also the ones who are aware of cultural issues, ethnic issues, religious issues that could be impacting that person, environmental issues like in the neighborhood, things like that might be impacting the treatment and what's happening. Social workers are aware of the policy limitations by the laws governing mental health, as well as the laws governing welfare and what kind of financial services that can happen. So they're an important part of that multidisciplinary team. 37% of social workers do consider themselves to be in the mental health field. So it's a pretty important field, and it's one that we often deal with. So some of you, I'm wondering if any of you have heard of the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. We are currently on volume 5. And if you're not aware of it, what it is that is the thing that we look up when you're going to see a client and you want the insurance to pick up the cost of that client. You have to make a diagnosis of that client. So the client might be at 201.3 or a 403.2. And you go into this very thick DSM-5 and you find what you think your client has, and that's what you diagnose them at. And things are pretty specific in there. If we were in person, I would be giving each of you one of these to take a look at, and I may try to send these to you so you can just take a look at it anyway. Here is one for panic disorder. You're not going to be able to see much, but that's kind of what if you don't worry about the words, but it tells you the numbers. It's a 300.01 there. And then it tells you what the diagnostic criteria is. So for panic disorder, palpitations, sweating, trembling, sensations of shortness of breath, feelings of choking. And then there's even a part down here where it'll tell you have to have at least one of these attacks followed by 1 month or more in which both of the following happen: persistent worry, a significant maladaptive change to your life. So there's a lot of details in here. I will send you a few. I just wish that I could send each of you one individually, but I'm not sure how to do that. If you're curious about a specific diagnosis and you want me to get you the sheet for that page, I'd be happy to do that. Just ask me what you're looking for. This is always that part when you go to graduate school and you're looking at diagnoses that everybody gets that. They start to read these and they think, oh, I think I have that too. So I can share them with you in that manner, but I will send you a couple of them. So the DSM-5 is an important thing to remember, and when you hear that again, you will know what it is. When we go to treat people with mental health, there's one thing that I'm going to tell you what it's ALGEE, ALGEE. This is probably one of the best ways that I've heard of to train people how to respond to somebody who's having a mental health crisis or someone who's sharing something with you and it sounds like it's kind of severe. If you can remember ALGEE, ALGEE, you'll be okay. You'll help them through it. First thing you want to do is assess them and see if they're going to harm themselves or harm somebody else. Are they suicidal? It's okay to ask people that. The second thing is when they answer you, you listen non-judgmentally. It's okay. Don't be afraid. Don't be too concerned. Listen non-judgmentally so that they are getting it out. The third thing is you want to give them encouragement and information. I hear what you're saying. I know a lot of people have felt that way before. I've heard this before. There's all kinds of help out there. There's medications that help. I will help you. The fourth is encouraging professional help. You want to connect them and give them that idea that you can help them connect with professional help, or you'll find a way to connect them with professional help. And the final thing is to encourage them to help themselves and maybe give them some strategies to help themselves. even if the person, you just ran into them at a bus stop and they are acting like they're very anxious and they start to talk to you, some of the strategies is just telling them to deep breathe in through their nose, out through their mouth, suggesting they count 1 to 10, letting them know you're going to stay with them till the next bus stop. Those things can all help. And if you are a social worker, you might be aware of some of the places in your community where you can refer somebody. Wanted to just talk for a second too about this. This is just something that I found, and I've been bringing it up in class because we just talked in the last modules about children and youth, and the incidents that happen as a child that can be neglectful and abusive, and what happens in adulthood. But I wanted to just run over even just little things that could have happened to us in our childhood as an example of the psychological effect these things can have. So this is a talking about pet peeves, and we all, maybe right now you could just think for a minute about a pet peeve. I'll give you one of mine. I like people to go on a red light. I mean, a green light when it switches. I don't like to wait. I want to get through there. So one of the things that gets a pet peeve, if you have one like that, or you don't like being like cut off in traffic, that can be a sign that it's triggering an old wound, maybe a wound from childhood where it seemed like you didn't matter or you were undervalued. Maybe you were the fifth child and parents were tired by then and they just weren't paying the level of attention. So when you get brushed aside and cut off in traffic, it really can set you off. And it could be coming from that childhood experience. Another one is people who get interrupted. That's a trigger for them. I have seen this in larger families with the younger kids because when they grow up, they have a tendency to remember when their brothers and sisters and their parents kind of cut them off because there's a lot going on in a family, a lot going on at the dinner table. But if you have found yourself getting minimized, pushed aside, interrupted, then that can trigger you to not like being interrupted when you're an adult. And if that's a pet peeve of yours, you'll know it. I mean, maybe nobody likes being interrupted, but when it's a real trigger issue for you, people knowing, this is one that I can tell you that I have, is that, and this is part of that waiting for the green light. If you had to wait a lot as a child, like wait for your parents to do things, if you had to go places with them and wait, I remember having to go to visit relatives and just sitting on a couch, and it was so hard. So I have a lot of trouble as an adult sitting still. I have a lot of trouble waiting. I'm ready to go all the time. Being put on the spot, if you don't like that, a lot of people in class don't want to be called on. They don't want to be put on the spot. A lot of times that can also be a trigger, a pet peeve, because you may have been corrected a lot by adults in your family, put on the spot, it maybe even shamed and embarrassed. So it sticks with you in that kind of triggering. There's all kinds of wounds that happen that way. It's one of the things that if you go into therapy, you can kind of go through what your triggers are. Well, you can go through what your pet peeves are to figure out what they are triggering that came from your childhood. Anyway, it's kind of an interesting thing to think about. And it's one of the things that in social work, we take continuing education classes throughout our career and we learn more about that kind of thing. Uh, I also had wanted to just talk to you for just a second about a couple things that I may stick in either into this class or I might just stick them in the end and hope that you'll take a look at them. One thing is a resilience questionnaire. I'm not sure, I might put this later, but I'm just going to talk about it for just a quick second. There are 14 traits in here that you would answer basically how you would have felt about this when you were 16. You can answer it as an adult if you wanted to, but it kind of will tell you how much inner resilience you have. And we often will give quizzes like this to teenagers and young adults because we want to make sure that they feel confident enough that they're going to be able to handle some of the tough days in life, or we can start giving them the strength to build up that level of resilience. So I may include them in either this or the next module. And the other one is what we call, let me pull this up. Hang on one second. I want you to see it from the beginning. This is called 40 Developmental Assets. So it's a two-page thing, and what it's basically saying is the things that an adolescent, to be healthy, would need to have in their community. And these are things that can start from childhood on, but what kind of activities and what kind of things does a community need to have in it? I'm just going to give you one, for example. A caring neighborhood, meaning that the neighbors care about the person, that you could be able to report, my neighbors do care about me and what happens. That you have adult role models that have some expectations for behavior. Oftentimes, I guess that could be a teacher. That you do homework and that you have some reading for pleasure. That's another resilience building activity. Social competencies, that you have planning and decision making, which is tough for teenagers, but that you have done some basic planning and made some basic decisions about maybe working or earning money or going to college or trade school or something like that. And then positive identity, feeling that you have self esteem or a sense of purpose. So when we have a lot of these, a person can say they have them, and a lot of these are created in the community. So it's a way a community can help make healthy children, healthy teenagers, and that of course makes healthy adults. So lot has been in these two modules, and I have so much stuff I would like to give you. So take care. I'll stick some stuff in this one, some questions for you, and thanks for your attention.